Before we dive in, let me leave you with a truth that echoes across every chapter in human history. Nothing we are began in silence. Every civilization, every story, every ancestor left a trail of wisdom waiting to be rediscovered. What you are about to hear is a part of a legacy, preserved, decoded, and brought back to the forefront. I'm OG Mooney. Welcome to AI Legacy Lab.
The story of King Von, born Davon Daquan Bennett, is often told through flashes of high-energy music videos, intense lyrics, and the headlines that followed his meteoric rise. But to truly understand the artist, you have to look beyond the fame and into the steady, unwavering rhythm of his early life on OBLOCK, the notorious neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. This isn't a story of sudden transformation, but one of slow, consistent molding, where every day was another layer added to the man he would become. Imagine growing up in a world where the faces you see every day are a reflection of your own. Black faces, friends, family, neighbors all moving through the same streets, the same buildings, the same daily routines. This was Von's world. It was a place where life had a predictable tempo, a rhythm dictated by the environment. The sun came up, the block came alive, and the day unfolded in a familiar pattern. This constant shared experience created a deep-seated understanding of community, loyalty, and survival. There were no sudden, dramatic events that instantly defined him. Instead, his character was shaped by the slow, repetitive nature of his surroundings. Day in and day out, Von navigated the same concrete walkways, hung out on the same porches, and shared conversations with the same people. This wasn't a world of grand epiphanies, but of gradual learning. Loyalty wasn't taught in a single lesson. It was lived every day through the bonds formed with his crew. Responsibility wasn't a concept he read about. It was the unspoken code of looking out for one another. Awareness wasn't a skill he acquired overnight. It was sharpened by the constant need to read situations, to understand the subtle shifts in the atmosphere of the block. These lessons were absorbed, not learned, becoming an intrinsic part of his being without him even realizing it. As time passed, these early experiences settled into his core. He carried the lessons of OBLOCK with him in a calm and steady way. His mindset wasn't formed by a single defining moment of trauma or triumph, but by the accumulation of thousands of smaller, repeated experiences. It was the consistent hum of life on the block that tuned his perspective. This gradual unfolding of his character is crucial to understanding the authenticity that would later define his music. He wasn't playing a role. He was simply reflecting a reality that had been his entire life. When he finally started rapping, this background became his greatest asset. He wasn't trying to create a persona or invent a backstory. He just told stories. His delivery was direct, his tone uninterrupted, a clear reflection of the life he lived. He spoke with the clarity of someone who wasn't trying to impress, but simply to report. There was no theatricality, no over-the-top exaggeration. His music was a window into the continuous, unfiltered flow of his world. Take a look at his early music videos. They weren't shot on lavish sets or in exotic locations. They were filmed right there on OBLOCK. The backdrops were the familiar apartment buildings, the walkways he crossed 1,000 times, and the faces were the same friends and family who had been with him from the start. These videos weren't just promotional tools. They were extensions of his reality. They reinforced the steady, consistent world that had shaped him, and that's what made them so powerful. Listeners connected with him immediately, not because of shock value or manufactured hype, but because his delivery felt real. It was an honest presentation of an environment that many either knew firsthand or were fascinated by. Von didn't burst onto the scene with a gimmick. He simply spoke his truth, and that truth resonated. His rise wasn't a sudden explosion. It was a slow burn. It built gradually as more and more people discovered his unique ability to articulate the continuous rhythm of life around him. His early fan base was built on this foundation of honest and consistent storytelling. They weren't just fans of his music. They were followers of his narrative. They felt like they knew him because, in a way, they did. He was showing them his world, unedited and unfiltered. This slow, organic growth gave him a solid footing. He wasn't a fleeting trend. He was an artist with a real story and a real connection to his audience. This steady momentum, grounded in the world that raised him, prepared him for the next phase of his journey. He entered the music industry not as a wide-eyed newcomer, but as a seasoned observer who had already lived a lifetime of stories. The calm demeanor, the unwavering confidence, the direct gaze, it all came from that consistent, predictable upbringing on OBLOCK. He knew who he was because his identity had been forged day by day in the crucible of his neighborhood. The rhythm of OBLOCK, the constant presence of his community, the unspoken rules, the daily cycle of events became the rhythm of his music. His flow, often described as relentless and straightforward, mirrored the unceasing nature of life in his environment. It just kept going, a continuous narrative that pulled you in and didn't let go. He wasn't just rapping over a beat. He was laying his life's rhythm on top of it. This consistency is what separated him from many of his peers. While others might chase trends or switch up their style to fit the moment, Vaughn remained anchored. His subject matter, his delivery, and his persona were all extensions of that singular, unwavering experience. He was a product of his environment in the truest sense, and he never tried to be anything else. Even as his fame grew and his circumstances changed, that foundation remained. The lessons learned on those familiar streets about loyalty, respect, and survival continued to guide his actions and his art. The stories might have gotten bigger, the stakes higher, but the storyteller remained the same. He was still the kid from OBLOCK, sharing his world with an unflinching honesty that was both captivating and rare. It's easy to look at the end of his story and see only the tragedy, but the beginning of his story is just as important. It's a testament to the power of consistency, of a life lived with a steady, unbroken rhythm. King Von's journey from Davon Bennett of OBLOCK to a global rap phenomenon wasn't a leap. It was a steady, determined walk. Each step was placed with the same confidence and clarity that had been ingrained in him since his earliest days. This foundational period, marked by its sameness and predictability, was the quiet engine that powered his explosive career. It gave him an unshakable sense of self and a deep well of stories to draw from. And as he moved forward, he carried that world with him, not as a burden, but as a badge of honor. He was OBLOCK, and OBLOCK was him. This steady, continuous journey of his early life wasn't just a prelude to his career. It was the very essence of it. He mastered the art of observation long before he ever picked up a microphone. He watched the dynamics of his neighborhood, the way people moved, the way they talked, the way they survived. He absorbed it all, storing these details until he had an outlet to share them. His music became that outlet, a direct transmission from his mind to the world. And so, his rise continued, not as a rocket ship blasting off, but as a powerful tide, gaining momentum with each new track, each new video, each new fan who recognized the truth in his voice. He was building an empire on the bedrock of his own reality. The consistency that defined his youth became the consistency that defined his brand. You knew what you were getting with a King Von track, an unfiltered story, a relentless flow, and a glimpse into a world that was entirely his own. This steady buildup was his greatest strength, allowing him to enter the next chapter of his life with a solid foundation and a clear sense of purpose, ready to tell his story to the world. As King Von stepped deeper into the world of music, his progression was fascinating because it followed the same steady, controlled pace that defined his entire life. Think about it. So many artists get a taste of the industry and immediately try to reinvent themselves. They change their delivery, switch up their style, and try to fit a mold they think will sell. But not Von. He entered the game without altering a single thing about his presentation. He kept that same direct, even tone that was so uniquely his, describing the routines and realities of his environment with vivid detail, but never with over-the-top drama or theatrical flair. He wasn't performing. He was reporting. He was a documentarian of his own life and the world he came from. His partnership with Lil Durk and his involvement with the Only the Family, or OTF, Collective was a massive boost. It expanded his reach and put him on a much bigger stage. But even with all that new attention, Vaughn remained remarkably consistent in how he carried himself. He was still grounded, still steady, still connected to the very same people from his community. These were the OBLOCK characters who appeared alongside him in his music videos, the friends he grew up with. This created a powerful sense of continuity with his past. It wasn't a before and after story. It was a continuous journey, and he was bringing his entire world along with him for the ride. This authenticity was magnetic. His storytelling became his signature. It was known for its incredible clarity and structure. When you listen to a King Von track, you were getting a straightforward, unfiltered view of his experiences. He wasn't relying on emotional spikes or dramatic pacing to keep you hooked. The power was in the narrative itself. The way he could paint a picture, introduce characters, and build a story from beginning to end was what solidified his reputation as a natural narrator of his world. He wasn't just a rapper. He was a modern-day storyteller, a guide for his generation, chronicling the life and times of Southside Chicago with an unflinching and honest perspective. He made you feel like you were right there, witnessing it all firsthand. As his fame inevitably grew, so did the responsibilities. Suddenly, he was dealing with the pressures of being a public figure, the demands of the music industry, and the expectations of a rapidly growing fan base. But Vaughn approached all of it with the same level balanced energy that had shaped his rise. His focus remained laser-sharp: music, travel, shows, and family. He didn't let the noise distract him. He didn't shift his tone to be more commercially friendly, and he certainly didn't alter his core sense of identity. He was still the same Vaughn, just on a global stage. This consistency was something his fans deeply respected. They knew that what they saw was what they got. Of course, the path wasn't always smooth. Legal issues and outside pressures frequently appeared, threatening to derail his momentum. For many artists, this is where the story stumbles. They get overwhelmed, they lash out, or they retreat. But Vaughn's response was, once again, defined by that calm persistence. He didn't panic. He just kept working. He responded by releasing new tracks, dropping new visuals, and continuing to build his momentum at that same controlled speed. He treated obstacles not as roadblocks, but as part of the journey he was documenting. Every challenge just became another chapter in the story he was telling. His rise to popularity is a case study in consistency. It wasn't fueled by sudden viral explosions or fleeting TikTok trends. You didn't see him chasing clout or jumping on whatever was hot at the moment. His fame was built brick by brick. Through a consistent presence, consistent storytelling, and a consistent, unbreakable connection with an audience that valued the steady flow of his work. People were drawn to the authenticity, the raw narrative, and the feeling that they were following a real story unfold in real time. He built a loyal following that was invested in him not just as an artist, but as a person. This method created a unique bond. Fans felt like they knew him because he never presented a fabricated version of himself. The King Von in the interviews was the same King Von on the tracks, who was the same King Von you saw on Instagram Live with his friends. This unbroken narrative thread is what made his presence so powerful and his art so resonant. He wasn't just making songs. He was building a world and inviting his listeners to step inside. The characters in his songs, like Crazy Story, felt like real people because they were based on real people from his life. This created an immersive experience that went far beyond just listening to music. His work ethic was relentless, but it was a controlled burn, not a wildfire. He understood the importance of pacing. By consistently dropping music and videos, he kept his audience engaged without ever oversaturating the market. Each release felt like an event, another piece of the larger puzzle he was assembling. This methodical approach ensured that his career had a solid foundation, built on quality and substance rather than hype. It was a long-term strategy in an industry that often prioritizes short-term gains. Vaughn was playing chess while many others were playing checkers. In the end, King Von's career is a testament to the power of staying true to yourself. He showed that you don't have to change who you are to succeed. His unwavering consistency, his steady-handed approach to both his art and his life, and his dedication to telling his story without compromise are what made him a truly unique and unforgettable figure in hip-hop. He created a legacy that was built not on sudden flashes of lightning, but on the steady, undeniable force of his narrative. He was a master of his craft, a chronicler of his reality, and his story continues to resonate because it was, above all else, real. As King Von's story moved into its later chapters, his career hit a phase of steady, undeniable growth. This wasn't a sudden explosion, but a solid expansion, bringing new opportunities and a much broader spotlight. Even as his world got bigger, his music stayed true to its core. It kept that same direct, unfiltered tone that had defined his rise from the beginning. He started traveling more, performing in new cities, and meeting people from all walks of life, far beyond the community he came from. But through it all, he remained grounded in his craft. He was showing the world who he was, without feeling the need to invent a new image or persona. He didn't change for the industry. He brought the industry into his world. His life moved forward with a unique balance of growth and familiarity. He was on an upward trajectory, but the things that mattered most stayed constant. His relationship with his family, his deep dedication to his music, and his unwavering loyalty to the people who had been with him since his OBLOCK days, all of these things remained the unshakable foundation of his life. Even as everything around him started to change at a rapid pace, this consistency was visible in everything he did. You could see it in his music videos. No matter where he traveled, no matter how big the budget got, the settings and the people in his visuals remained familiar. The environments were centered on his community, featuring the same faces and the same streets that shaped him. These weren't just backdrops. They were the core of his identity, a constant reminder of where he came from and what he stood for. This steady climb was built on consistent releases, constant engagement with his fans, and the clear, powerful storytelling that set him apart. He wasn't chasing trends or trying to fit into a mold. He was just telling his stories, his way. His journey felt like it was moving at a measured, deliberate pace, each step building logically on the one before. There was a rhythm to his rise, a sense of continuous, unbroken progress. Then, the night of his passing arrived. It was sudden, a shocking and abrupt end to a life that had been moving with such a steady forward motion. There was no build-up, no warning. It was a full stop, a silence that fell over a career and a life that were still very much in motion. In the aftermath of his death, something remarkable happened. His influence didn't fade away. In fact, it did the opposite. It continued to grow, following that same steady, persistent rhythm that had defined his career. Fans, both old and new, returned to his music. They dove deep into his catalog, sharing his stories, dissecting his lyrics, and keeping his legacy alive in countless conversations online and in the real world. His name and his art became more powerful than ever. Von transformed into a symbol of directness, of raw honesty, and of unmatched clarity in storytelling. He proved that you could be unapologetically yourself and still reach the highest levels of success. His work continues to cast a long shadow over the rap world. The impact he made is not a fleeting moment. It's a continuous line, an unbroken influence that mirrors the path he walked. From the streets of OBLOCK to a global stage, his journey was defined by a steady, unwavering commitment to his truth. And it's that same truth that continues to resonate, inspiring a new generation of artists to tell their own stories with the same raw conviction. The story of King Von is not just about a rapper who made it big. It's about the power of authenticity and the enduring strength of a voice that refused to be silenced, even in death. His legacy moves forward not in explosive bursts, but with the same consistent, powerful rhythm that defined his life and his music. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this look into King Von's legacy, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content.
Another chapter reclaimed, another piece of history placed back where it belongs. If you have found any meaning in this, let it sit with you. Let it sharpen your vision, not just for the past, but for who we are becoming. I'm OG Mooney, and this is AI Legacy Lab. Honoring truth, protecting legacy, one story at a time. Until next time, stay curious.